Hello, everybody. Welcome to yet another edition of Kosher Movies. This is the second time we're doing this. Hello, Abba. How are you?
Doing fine, fantastic. Baruch Hashem, fantastic.
Baruch Hashem, fantastic. So I am in West Virginia, and you
I always say
are in
the holy city of Beit Shemesh,
the holy city of
Israel.
Beit Shemesh in Israel,
Right.
and
And
we are
every
going.
day
We
is a
are.
blessing. Every day is a blessing.
We are
So when
trying
I
to
say
do this leading.
fantastic, when I say
What?
fantastic, when I say that, Baruch Hashem means, blessed is God, it's fantastic. I take that very seriously because every morning when I get up and I'm functioning, that's a minor and maybe even a major miracle. So I'm happy to say that. If you ask me how I'm doing, I always say Baruch Hashem, fantastic.
Baruch Hashem, fantastic. Well, I'm happy
Right.
to hear that.
Especially since I'm talking to you.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. So we are trying to do this leading up to the Oscars. Each week discussing another movie that's Academy Award nominated this year. Last week, I recommend, if you haven't listened to it already, you can check out on our Facebook pages. We talked about Top Gun Maverick. And today we're going to talk about Elvis, the new Elvis. I'm sure there's been plenty of Elvis movies. But today we're going to talk about Elvis. And
This may be the
for
first.
those, say
This
again?
may be the first. But Elvis has been in many movies, a lot of musicals. But I think this is the first biopic of Elvis Presley. But maybe again, that's geared for theatrical release. There's been other Elvis movies that have been appear on television.
Yeah, that's true. And just to set the stage, my dad, Rabbi Herbert Cohen, is the author of a whole series of books called Kosher Movies, and each one goes through. He writes essays about different movies, about life lessons. They're not necessarily "quote unquote" kosher movies in the sense that they're edible and profanity free, but they are kosher in the sense that they offer a life lesson for people who watch them. And so there's a whole series of books called Kosher Movies. You can find them all on Amazon or on your website, koshermovies.com. Any other plugs before we get started? Any other?
Well, I have two new books coming out.
Okay.
The one that's going to come out first is called Movies Under the Radar, films that have been commercial flops but critical successes, and often these films go unrecognized. So I decided that since nowadays with Netflix, there's an opportunity to see a lot of films that don't get really a wide release. So if you're a movie fan, you have a lot of options now with Netflix and other streaming services. So I felt I wanted to give these movies sort of a second win, a second chance at being seen and being recognized as worthwhile entertainments.
Yeah, the underdog movies.
What?
The underdog movies.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So today we're going to talk about a movie that's not an underdog. It was a box office success and a critical success, and that is Elvis. And just to quickly talk about, give a little synopsis of the movie. Elvis is the story of Elvis Presley. It's kind of a biopic. It starts off when he's a kid, and it shows you how he got into music, his certain style of music, and how he became a success. And there's a character in the movie that many people may not be aware of, and that is of Elvis's manager, Colonel Tom Parker, who is played by Tom Hanks in a very interesting casting role, if you ask me. He's kind of unrecognizable in this role, and it kind of shows the rise and fall of Elvis's career. So, what did you think of the movie?
But I'm a big Elvis fan from 1950s. That's when I went to high school, and I would buy his records. I never saw him in person, but I was a big fan of his music, and rock and roll was the entree into my teenage years and into adulthood. So I really was looking forward to seeing this film. And while it's not a totally accurate biopic, it did give me some insights into Elvis Presley that I didn't really even think about. I mean, I had always heard about Colonel Tom Parker, but this was sort of the first time I got a sense of who he was. Now, again, whether he actually was that way, I'm not sure. But the movie clearly suggests that he was really in total control of Elvis's career. And what was, in a sense, the part of the film that really made me think about this film after I left the theater was the whole notion of friendship. What is a friend? How do you define friendship? I know that, in my own youth, I was blessed with some really good friends. And one of them visited me recently in Israel. He was not in great health, but it's a friendship that's spanned over 60 years. And throughout the time we've been friends, we always shared life's peaks and valleys, and always been there to support one another in difficult times. And even though we didn't necessarily follow the same career path, we never found fault with one another, never criticized one another. And each one's path, mine and his, was never selfish when it came to friends. So we were altruistic. And one particular time, he gave me some life-changing advice. I told him, and this was in the spring of 1976. I was studying at Yeshiva University at the time. It was not 1966. My Talmud teacher, I had started going to, yeshiva education late. I went to public school. And at that point, in 1966 in spring, my friend and I were talking, and my teacher told me that my study skills weren't strong enough to enter the ordination program at Yeshiva University. So my friend said to me, why don't you go to Israel for a year? Why don't you simply go there, remove yourself from the American environment and, immerse yourself in Judaic studies? And I took his advice. I was encouraged by my late wife, Sandra, and we left for the Holy Land on an adventure. This really was largely due to advice of a good friend. That kind of altruistic friendship is not evident in Elvis. As you said, it depicts the rise and fall of Elvis Presley. Perhaps, he was the greatest of all rock stars, and he had a friendship, or at least he thought he did, with Colonel Tom Parker, who was, in a sense, a very mysterious manager, and he controlled Elvis's career for over 2 decades. And at least the film tells us that because he was an undocumented immigrant, that's the reason Elvis never toured Europe. Because if he traveled to Europe, Colonel Tom Parker would have trouble re-entering the United States. That's something I never heard about before. And as portrayed in the film, Colonel Tom Parker, played interestingly by Tom Hanks, who's everybody's father, grandfather, or a friend. It is a casting,
choice.
It's unusual casting, but you see, Parker's definitely driven by money and by greed, and his own needs are primary, not Elvis's. Elvis's well-being and his health are really secondary, as long as the revenues come in. He's totally driven by the idea of, how much money can this young talent give to me? I'm curious, what was your reaction to this movie? Because I know that you obviously are not an Elvis fan. You approached him, as a historical artifact. So how did you like the music? How did you like the film? I'm anxious to hear a younger perspective.
Well, I obviously I know of Elvis.
Benyamin.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes, I can.
Yeah. Okay, good. Yeah, obviously I've heard of Elvis. You actually took me on a trip to Graceland when I was a kid. We went not only to Graceland in Memphis, but we also went to, I think, Tupelo, Mississippi, to Elvis's birth house as well on that same trip.
Yes.
So obviously
Yeah.
I'm very aware of Elvis. I like some of his songs. The movie to me could have been at least a half hour shorter. It was over 2.5 hours long. It was a little. The director Baz Luhrmann is a very stylistic director, and so I thought some of the movie was just a little bit over stylized, kind of a bit of a mess. But yes, there were some really important life lessons in here about coping with fame. You know, there's a lot of movies where we see the rise and fall narrative, you know, and this
Yeah.
was pretty clear in this movie, you know, the rise and fall, you know, what people do with fame and um, how they deal with fame. Um, you know,
Right.
one of the things that struck me during the movie was the fact that and I don't know, you know, if this is true or not, but they laid the blame for Elvis's mom's death on, you know, basic stress of Elvis's career is basically what led to her death. And it made me wonder, A, if that's true, but B, what kind of guilt that left Elvis with, knowing that, you know, if he had just stayed home and not become a famous rock star, maybe his mother would have lived longer.
Yeah.
So
But
what did
in
you
the
think about
film,
that?
well, I think his parents, his mother and father, both had what we called, Yiddish anachas from the success of their son.
Yeah,
They enjoyed, they weren't people interested in fame, but the
right,
accoutrements of fame, Elvis provided them with, a home, with a life that they never even dreamed of. And he loved his parents, his mother in particular. He had a special
yeah,
relationship with her. The Talmud says to us that every person, it says, acquire for yourself a friend, because a friend should be an objective onlooker, but an onlooker who wants the best for you and helps you to correct and avoid mistakes in life. And Elvis didn't have that. He didn't have any real friends that were prepared to offer him advice and maybe
right.
criticize him. His parents loved him, but they were not critical thinkers at all. They just basked in his,
Success.
professional, limelight. And interesting, the word in Hebrew for a friend is chaver, and the root is chibur, which means connection. A friend has to be connected to you emotionally, because friendship involves building trust between people, feeling safe, willing to be vulnerable, and that builds intimacy one step at a time. And when you watch this film, there's nobody that really provides that for him. He's just,
Right.
out there, and he's extremely vulnerable because he has nobody guiding him in terms of how he should lead his life and how he should, maybe strike a balance between fame and getting his own personal life together. There's no role
Although
models.
you could argue his wife was a confidant, but he didn't take advantage, I think, of her friendship.
No, no, and she was much younger than him too.
Yeah,
So I don't think he saw her as a mentor. He saw her
right,
as a mother. Yeah.
right.
Um,
It,
so
it was it was pretty interesting. I liked at the end how they incorporated real life footage of Elvis at the end. It kind of brought everything home,
together.
made it feel more real.
Yeah.
Do you have any
Yeah.
other parting thoughts about Elvis?
Well, clearly to me, it was a meditation or an analysis of the meaning of friendship. Friends don't calculate benefits and liabilities in a relationship. Uh, Friends are not judgmental. They're supportive even when they don't agree, and they're honest. They're not manipulative. And their love is always manifest in the day-to-day reactions and interactions with the people they really love. And what the movie clearly suggests is that the Colonel was not an authentic friend. He was a conniver who seeks to disadvantage Elvis if he can profit by it. So, from my point of view, there's a life lesson here. The life lesson is Colonel Tom Parker is a negative role model. Stay away
Right.
from guys like that, and be aware that people have mixed motives. It's a
Right.
cynical perspective, so I'm not happy about it. But it's not, I would say, a conventional positive message film at all. But I think there are things that you can learn from it. And as an Elvis fan, I enjoyed the music.
Yeah, the music was really good. And yeah,
Yeah.
they actually had some modern recreations of some of Elvis's songs, which were nice to hear. So it looks like we have like 1 or 2 more weeks until the Oscars. What are you thinking for next week? I have a thought. I'm curious what your thought is.
Well, interestingly, after the first program, a few people wrote to me and wanted me to review Everything Everywhere. I forgot the name.
Yeah.
All at Once.
All at Once.
I happened to
Yeah.
see that. I have very mixed reactions to that film. It's a very creative film. Really,
Yeah.
it's fascinating. But if you think Elvis was long, that I think is even longer. So that's a hard watch.
Maybe I'll start watching a little bit today, and watch a few minutes every day.
But at the end of the day, I'm not sure I'm going to come out with a lot of well, I'll come out with some positives because I admired the technical virtuosity of the film. But overall, I had very mixed feelings about it. So I'm not sure if you and I should review it, unless you feel you want to create some controversy.
Controversy can be good for views.
It's a long movie, though. It's a long movie, and there are strokes of brilliance in it. I mean, there are parts of it are brilliant, but as a whole, it's an ordeal. It's not simple.
Okay, so we can leave our viewers on a cliffhanger. Will we or won't we review Everything Everywhere All at Once next week? Tune in next week to find out. Right?
When you post this in Facebook or wherever we're going to post it, say we're interested in your point of view.
Okay.
You make suggestions to us, and maybe we'll consider what the poll results are.
I like that.
And we'll decide on the basis of the viewer which are the next 2 films that we'll do.
I like it. It's very democratic. I like that. It's very democratic. So do you hear that? So everybody put in the comments below. What?
Yeah, below, yeah. And contrary to what you read in the papers, democracy is alive and well in Israel.
Democracy is alive and well on the Kosher Movies broadcast. So in the comment section below, put we're just doing Oscar, 2023 Oscar movies right now. So last week we did Top Gun. This week we did Elvis. We're considering Everything Everywhere All at Once for next week, but we'll leave it up to the audience. So put your suggestion in the comments section below, and tune in next week and see if that's what we talk about. Again, I just want to remind everybody, the whole reason we're doing this is we're trying to remind everyone about my dad's book series, Kosher Movies. He's got 7 books already published. 2 more are in the pipeline. The 7 you can get on Amazon.com, Kosher Movies. Just type that in, or you can go to koshermovies.com. And you'll have essays, like basically written versions of what you experienced today, kind of a life lesson from movies from across all categories: comedies, dramas, westerns, anything. Any final thoughts? Yeah.
Well, the films, some of them I dated from over 60 years ago. It's not the films span a wide range of years as well as genres.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Well, this has always been.
It's a great excuse. It's a great excuse for me to spend time with my son, long distance. I rarely get a chance to spend 20 minutes on the phone because he's a very busy man.
Well, yeah. So, and I had to do homework for this conversation, watching a movie. All right, so we will sign off now, and we'll see everybody next week, and I hope everybody has a great rest of the day.
Thank you. Bye-bye.